Well, hello everybody. Welcome into the afternoon session of day 2 of ClayShareCon 2024. And we have something extra special for you. We have a great Q&A session with Drew from Clayscapes, and it's all about kilns and the things you need to know before you buy them. So a lot of times people will buy a kiln and they might not think through all of the things that you should think through. Well, Drew's going to help you right now to make sure you get the right kiln. Even if you don't buy it from Clayscapes Pottery, he wants to make sure you get the kiln that you should have. And he's also going to talk about the brand new L&L kiln that we're going to be giving away here on Saturday. So if you haven't entered the giveaway, go to clayshare.com, sign up for our email list, and that's how you enter. If you are a premium member of Clayshare, you're automatically entered, including the ones who just signed up as free trial members. You are automatically entered as well. So you don't have to worry about it. You're all good. All right, so let's go over to Syracuse and see how Drew is doing. Hey, Drew, how you doing?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Jess. How's it going?
Great.
I hope everybody's having a great ClayShareCon. We're getting ready to talk about kilns here. I did want to take a second to just say that we are, Clayscapes is doing a free shipping promotion this ClayShareCon. So rather than having different discounts for all different products and things like that, we just piled it all together into free shipping. And it's pretty much store-wide with a few exceptions like clay and equipment. But we are doing that free shipping promo. But we are getting ready to talk about how to decide what kiln is going to work best for you. And I think I mostly came up with this segment from life experience, but I've talked to so many people that they say, well, I went out and I got the kiln, whatever kiln I could afford, that, I bought the best kiln for the amount of money I was willing to spend. And a lot of times you don't need to, folks are spending more money than what they need, and so things like special elements and heavy duty, this and that, are all really useful in different scenarios. But, if the only thing that is leading your search for a new kiln is your dollar amount budget, we can save you some money here by just asking a few simple questions. And so the three main important things that I ask when anybody's saying, I'm thinking about looking at getting a kiln, I really don't know what size or anything like that to get. Can you help me? And we're going to ask, number one, what are you making? What's the type of work you're doing? Are you making platters and larger bowls? Are you doing mostly cups and mugs and cereal bowl type work? Or are you doing larger, like larger vases and things like that? And so we want to know what you're making, what temperature you want to fire to. So that's also going to be dictated by the clay and the glazes that you're using. But if you want to fire to cone 6, for example, mid-range, cone 5, cone 6, well, that is going to indicate that some kilns are going to be better for you than others, because there are some kilns that may not be able to reach the temperature that you're looking for. My watch is talking to me. So yeah, and then the other thing that I always like to the other first question I ask is, what's your electrical budget? How much power do you have available or free in your control panel at home to accommodate this kiln that you're going to? Some people have a 100 amp service, some people have a 200 amp service, and so knowing like, wow, I really only have 30 amps free, that's going to dictate the size of the kiln that you can get. And so we really just, those are the three main ones. And then we can narrow things down from there. Moving on from that, every kiln company has, there's like generic sizes because the kiln shelves industry is a certain size. So there's industry standard sizes that tend to range from an 18-inch interior, a 23-inch interior, or a 28-inch interior. Okay. And so you go from dinner plates to turkey plates to, big platters. And those are the sizes that are typically, like all kiln companies. L&L has, an 18-inch series of short, medium, and tall, a 23-inch series of short, medium, and tall, and a 28-inch series of short, medium, and tall. And that's not to say that there aren't other options. There are. We'll talk about test kilns and the new test kiln that's coming out in a couple minutes here. But
the
those
one we're
are
giving
typically,
away.
yeah, we're giving it away. It's going to be awesome. I've seen the picture of it, and I have a test controller here that I'm showing off. That's really similar. That's almost identical to what the controller is going to be like on the new test kiln. But for your bigger kilns that you're gonna you want to fire multiple pieces. Those are kind of your if I were to make like a graph, there would be a row of 18-inch, 20-inch, and 28-inch. And then those will dictate, kind of what kiln you're going to get. You'll need to know things like, is it going to be 240 volt or 208 volt? And, if there's any, I always recommend checking with like your local electrician if you're unsure. That should be simple for somebody to come by and say like, okay, this is your voltage and you have X amount of amps available to put in a breaker for this. And so any electrician can help with that. And then we talk about test kilns. We use the Dahl kilns from L&L because all our bigger kilns are also L&Ls. And so we have the Dahl kilns, which run on a 208 or 240 volt service. And so those are rated to cone 10. But this new kiln that L&L is coming out with is a little bit smaller. It's square, and it runs on a 120 volt, which is a variation on one of your normal wall outlets. And so what that really does is that makes being able to fire a small amount of things. If I wanted to do like a test tile and put it in my test kiln and fire it up, you don't necessarily need to have access to that 240 volt. Because I know some places, you rent, or there's just no way that you're going to be able to run a 240 volt line. That's going to be, because sometimes that can cost a lot of money to have that electrical installed for the kiln. And so this new test kiln is going to make it so that like you don't even need to do that. You could basically, with a little bit of electrical work, any outlet can be used as long as it's got the right breaker and everything like that. So it's really cool that they're coming out with this new kiln. I'm super excited to get to play around with it. And
I'm excited for it.
I think that whoever wins it is going to be very pleased. So
they're going to be very lucky duck. That's true.
Yeah,
they're going to love it. Yeah.
And that new kiln is not available. So L&L hasn't.
It's not been released yet.
No, it is not released. So
L&L told me the winner of this is getting the very first one.
Yes, they're getting the first one.
So they've been testing it. It's good. They've been, it exists.
Yes.
It's just you're going to be the first customer to get one.
Yes, the winner will be the first customer to get one. But if this is something that people are interested in, and I know that there's folks out there that have been looking for, a kiln, but the test kiln on the market, is only rated to cone 5 or 6. And so if you're planning to fire to cone 5, 6 in the mid-range, you really want a kiln that's rated to cone 10. And so if it's rated to cone 5 and you fire it to cone 5, technically that's like it's doing it, right? But what's really happening is it's like I like to compare it to driving your car at like 200 miles an hour all the time. Just because there's 200 mile an hour on the speedometer doesn't mean that it should go to 200 all the time. And that's what's happening with kilns. If you've got a kiln that's rated to 5 and you're firing it to 5, it's just gonna require more maintenance. You're gonna have to do more element swapping and repair work. And so to accommodate for that, if you're firing the mid range, you really want something that's rated to 10. And so this new test kiln is going to make that a lot more accessible for people that don't necessarily have access to a 240 volt power. So that's really cool. I'm really excited about that.
We got a couple questions. Do you want?
Yeah, sure.
Do you
Go
want
ahead.
to answer? So some folks have questions about kilns in general. Can you put a small kiln in your basement if it's 6 to 8 feet away from a gas furnace?
So, yeah, I believe you can. I haven't looked at the specific rules of like a gas furnace, but realistically, the kiln doesn't shed that much heat. Once you get more than 5, 6 inches away from the kiln, the temperature it's not radiating like flammable material. And so the clearance wise, you really want to make sure that the kiln has clearance from any flammable sources. So if there's wood floors or if you've got like unfinished drywall with the wood studs, things like that, you may want to get a concrete fireproof backer board and prevent and put it up there. I would say to be safe, if you're worried about a gas furnace, you could also, again, put up that concrete backer board to protect it. But that's definitely something that I don't think would be an issue. Yeah, no, it would be fine.
And that leads me into this other question. The person was told, so this person's got a bunch of questions. So they're looking at buying a kiln, and they were told from the place they were going to buy it from that they don't need a kiln vent because she's using it in her garage. And she also doesn't want to drill through her wall to vent it since there's no window. And so they want to know, do they have to have a vent for their kiln?
Right. So I get this question a lot, right? Do I need a vent? Is a vent absolutely necessary? And so what I tell people is if the kiln is going to be in or near your living space, or if it's going to be part of your studio that you're going to be working in every day, you want to vent it. The ventilation not only keeps all of the outgassing from your clay and glaze and things like that can be caustic. It directly vents that out. And so that's really good for air quality and things like that. But the vent also serves a couple other purposes. Because the vent attaches to the bottom of the kiln, it's called a downdraft kiln vent. And what that does is it pulls the air in the kiln down. And, heat rises. And so typically, a lot of times, especially if you've got a 3-section kiln, you'll find that, the top of your kiln may be firing a little hotter than the bottom of your kiln. Well, the downdraft kiln vent helps to kind of even out your firing, but it also will prolong the life of all of the metal on your kiln. And so anybody that has like a 15 or a 20-year-old kiln knows that like the metal band around the kiln brick starts to corrode and rust over time, and all of the metal components begin to rust over time. And that downdraft kiln vent is going to slow down that deterioration because it's pulling all of those gases that cause that deterioration directly out of the kiln. That being said, if you're putting the kiln in like a garage or a shed or like a 3-season porch, and nobody's going to be out there, and it's just that's just where the kiln is, it doesn't have to be vented. It's not like necessary for successful firing, right? You don't need a kiln vent. It's just if it's going to be like in the residence, or, you know, if you're in your studio and your kiln is right over there firing, like ideally you would want it to be vented.
Yeah. I mean, I recommend a kiln vent because you're paying all this money to buy a kiln and you want that kiln to last. And with a vent, your kiln elements are going to last longer, and the kiln itself is going to last longer because without the vent, everything comes out through where the rings come together, and all this corrosion will happen there. So your kiln in a few months is going to look old and it will start to corrode. That's just right. And that's just part of a kiln and what it will do. But if you run a vent, it'll last, it'll stay uncorroded. And I can tell you from experience, I ran a kiln without a vent, and that kiln looked 20 years old within a year. It just did. And and also I had to replace the elements sooner. So it costs more at the beginning, but in the long run, it's worth it. You'll get better results too.
It's definitely going to save. And it's, you know, again, the air quality thing is also a big thing. You know, if it's going to be out, you know, like if it's going to be out in your garage and you don't mind, like the other nice thing about a kiln vent is that you can always put one on later. So I always tell folks that, like, especially if budget is tight and you're like, I don't have another $600 to buy a kiln vent. You know, it's something that you can, 6 months or a year down the road, you can say, all right, I'm going to put the vent on and just get up under there. Like, you know, just like a mechanic under a car, you'll be able to attach it underneath and add it later. So it's not one of those things that, like, if you don't get it right away, you're up the creek, right? Like you can always add a vent on later. So, but
often you can save when you package it together.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
At the beginning. So you can save a bit more. And then the other question they had is the vendor told her that she did not have to put it 12 inches from the walls because the heat comes from the top. Now that I will argue, you have to keep it minimum of 12 inches, preferred 15 to 18, depending on the kiln. And definitely it cannot be anything combustible. The floor, you cannot put it on a combustible material. You must put something down first, and ideally something
concrete,
behind it.
You know, here.
Yes,
so like
concrete.
Everything here is concrete. So we can put, like, that kiln can be put right up against the wall, right? But if you have drywall with wooden studs and you're not sure, like, if you want to put it that close to the wall, then I recommend that fireproof backer board. You can get it. It's similar to drywall. You can buy it in big sheets and line the walls so that you can push the kiln back in that corner a little bit further if you want. I will say, though, that because of the way most kilns lids open and rest back, it's going to dictate that it be a little bit further away anyways. If you try to put it too close to like a corner, your lid's not going to open all the way. And so I find that typically once you've gotten it to a point where the lid can open, it's already 12 to 18 inches away from a wall. Like, there's no way that it's going to be closer than that. So, you know, it's not, it does radiate heat from all sides. And I have seen, you know, people put, you know, if you've got like linoleum, like a linoleum floor, or I've seen kilns put on like an asphalt floor, and it will do damage. It has to be fireproof. Tile, concrete, cement. You can get like 2 foot by 2 foot concrete pavers for, like, you know, a few bucks at the hardware store. Those make a really good, like a little 9x9 or 3x3 square of them, make a really good, really easy fireproof base if you don't want to like rip up your floor. But yeah, it definitely needs those clearances. They are not negotiable.
We have some questions about, people want to know, can you have a kiln that's on wheels, like wheel it around your studio? And if so, can you have an event? So
there are new rolling stands. L&L has new rolling stands that are actually a lot more streamlined. The older rolling stand was this big box, and it worked as part of the vent collecting as well. And now they've got these stands with casters on them that are, a lot more sleek and streamlined. I don't tend to recommend a kiln on a rolling stand, but there are situations where like you don't have the space and you can only have, you roll the kiln out when you use it and then you put it away when you're not using it. And so in these instances, the rolling stands are really useful. It's just a little bit of a hassle when it comes to the ventilation because of how the vent hoses hook up. There isn't like a good express attachment for the vent. And so it's just a little bit of like rooting around to hook the vent up. But that's, it's not really a big deal. So yeah, they do have rolling stands that can accommodate the vents. Yeah. The other thing that I get a lot is, people ask like, well, what brand? They want to know like, what's a good brand of kilns, right? And the first thing that I typically will recommend is what is your local supplier? What does your local clay supplier sell? But then beyond that, if are you going to be working on the kiln yourself, or are you going to need somebody to come work on it for you? And knowing the answer to those like two questions will help you understand. Well, I need to get a kiln that my kiln repairman knows how to work on. But for the most part, everything is really similar these days. We use L&Ls here in the studio, and we've had a really great relationship with L&L ever since our company was born many years ago. And so we really like them. I love the ease of being able to switch out elements really easily, and the element holders really make a difference in the L&Ls. And so, we definitely rep them. We also, we're doing a discount right now. We always do a discount on kilns, but, during ClayShareCon, there's a little bit of an extra incentive. So we're doing an extra 5%. So it's a 20% discount on the Easy Fire kilns and the eQuad Pros and the new test kiln. And so that's going to be something that we can do. You can buy the new test kiln through Clayscapes during ClayShareCon. And so if anybody wanted that, they could do it. And we're here. So
we've got more questions. So it kind of goes with what size L&L kiln would you recommend for a small pottery business, mostly mugs, honey pots, ceramic ornaments, etc. So getting started, like your first kiln maybe, and you just want to get one.
So I find that the most popular size is the 23S or the 23T. The reason that and the 23S means that it's we're going to move this guy over here so I don't keep bumping it. The 23S means it's 23 inches wide, and it's the short model. So it's got a 2-section kiln, which means it's got an 18-inch tall interior. Typically, you're going to get 2 to 3, maybe 4 layers if you're doing flat work in the short kilns. And so when you're doing things like mugs and, jars and bowls, that's going to be really good. If you're cranking out work, I would go with the tall model. But the 23 series are really kind of like the sweet spot. They're just the most popular size because they can accommodate, a dinner plate size. They can accommodate some of the bigger GR pottery form sizes. You want to go to the 23. And so that would definitely be my recommendation. And so that's the E23S model. You have
any of those in stock? The E23S?
I don't have them in stock, but L&L has got a really, they're getting a really quick turnaround right now. I want to say it's like 4 to 6 weeks. So it's not really that bad. And so any kilns that we have ordered here during this ClayShareCon, and we're the free shipping promotion that Clayscapes is doing on all of our small package items, that ends when ClayShareCon ends. But we always extend the kiln sale to the week after, because sometimes you have to call an electrician and get them to come in.
You got to think about it.
You
need
don't
some
know
time.
necessarily what you're going to do. And each kiln sale is typically, there's a little bit of back and forth between me and the customer to really dial in exactly what you guys need. And so we just kind of allow that extra week after ClayShareCon to really let people have get all of the information that they need. So yeah, that would definitely, the 23 is definitely, and Jess has a 23T.
Yeah. And tomorrow I'm going to have a video during the lunch break that shows the 3 kilns that I have in the studio, the 3 L&Ls. So nice. I've got those, and that'll show the E28S, the E23T, and my DLH11DX.
Yes.
I know. Couldn't have given me something easier to say, but that's my test kiln. So I'll be showing that tomorrow so you can kind of get a feel for it. But so here's a question. And a lot of folks are saying buy bigger than you think you need, because that way you can grow into your kiln.
So,
so you might think a little kiln's good, but what happens when you make that platter, that first platter?
Right. And when part of it is also saying, so when I ask you, well, what are you making? And, do you see this, if somebody says like, I'm a hobbyist, I'm just doing it for fun, I'm not, doing shows or anything like that, that's one thing. But if you say, I could foresee that, in a year, I might want to do a show or two, like you're going to want to get a little bit bigger kiln than if you were to say, I'm just doing this for fun. But they're all, there are so many different, L&L has dozens and dozens of options. We talk about, there's the kilns that are on sale, which are the Easy Fires, the eQuad Pro, things like that. But they also have a whole line of Jupiter kilns, which are for like production manufacturing. Like they're going to get, more electricity. You're going to get more bang for your buck in these kilns. They're heavier duty pieces of equipment. And so there's lots of options, which can be overwhelming. I definitely understand, which is why we kind of I like doing this kind of how do I know what kind of kiln to buy segment, just because it can be confusing and people get so much information thrown at them that like it can be overwhelming for sure.
So this person has a question. What is the largest 120 volt kiln available?
The largest 120 volt kiln available. So you can get the DLH11 that you have, the DAW kiln, the test kiln. You can get that kiln on a 120 volt, but it's only going to be rated to cone 5.
It's going to struggle to get to 5 even.
It's going to struggle to get to 5.
It'll never go to 6. So if you want 6, you're never going to get there. If you do low fire, be great.
And so this new one is coming out. It's a little bit smaller, but it's not a ton smaller.
It's an 8 by 8 by 9.
Yeah, it's 8 by 8 by 9. Yeah, 8 by 8 by 9.
Yeah.
And so it's basically a 1-section tall kiln, and then it's, instead of being, octagonal, it's going to be square. And so this new test kiln is kind of that's going to be the, like, anybody that has got a 120 volt, like they're going to want to, that's the kiln they're going to want to get. It's going to be less expensive. And
do you know what the retail is going to be on that? Because I was thinking about 1,000.
Retail is $1,635. Is going to be $1,635.
Okay,
and
I
so
thought it was 1,000.
The discount that, like, if you were to buy it through Clayscapes here this week during ClayShareCon, it's $1,308, and it's got an $80 shelf kit. So for $1,388, you'll be in line to be like one of the first people to get this. As soon as they come off the production line, they're going to go straight to you.
But these are good test kilns. I would not buy this as my only kiln unless I only make jewelry, or once in a while make a mug or something. Or if you travel a lot, this could be very nice. Yes.
it could also be, wow, it's 120. So I don't know if that's like available. Like if you were at a show, you may be able to figure out a way to
Plug
like
it
have a
in.
kiln in your booth type of thing. So it would be really interesting, but they're definitely flexible. But this new 8x8x6 is going to be the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about the 23M? That's the one they came out with a couple years ago. I think that's a sweet spot kiln.
Yeah.
That's a really nice size kiln.
I like the M series. The big issue is there's a jump electrically, right? And so what happens is I think the 23S requires a 50 amp breaker, and the 23M and T require a 60 amp breaker. And so there's that. But it's basically 2.5 sections. It's really good if you want like that extra, an extra few inches. If you have like a form that you make and you know that form is 18 inches tall and you just need like a little bit extra room, the 23M is a really good option. You'll definitely be able to get an extra layer in there. And I believe it does come as like a third zone. So it has like a third thermocouple. But they're all, every kiln, there's a kiln for everybody. Some people have a hard time loading because they've got to lean over this tall kiln.
Yes, I hear you. As a shorter person.
Yeah. And so the S models and the M models, the small and mediums, those are really good for people that have back issues and that can't be leaning over as much.
My 23T is great, but I lean over and almost fall in it to get the bottom, get to the very bottom.
And some people need a step stool for those 3-section kilns.
That's
so the 23M or the 23S are going to be great alternatives for that. And then, we would get into the 28. If you're doing 28, this is the 3-section 28 E28T. That kiln is a 10 cubic foot kiln. And that is like the biggest I would go typically. Anybody looking for
the E28T.
Yeah. For,
it's a huge
anything
kiln.
bigger than that, you're getting into like tons and tons of electricity. And it's not, it's difficult. And then there's also limitations. So typically I limit it. I don't limit it. It's up to the customer really, but for the most part, that 10 cubic foot is like the biggest kind of kiln that you would go. And I would really, probably 90% of the time, if you're looking for a 10 cubic foot kiln, I'm going to move you to a Jupiter. And there are a few different reasons for that. One of them is electricity, and rating and things like that. But yeah, that's as big, as I would typically suggest. So
I have a question about kiln vents. This person wants to know your thoughts on the necessity of the vent control for the vent sure for L&L. They're definitely getting the vent sure, but not sure if the vent control is necessary. What benefits does it offer?
So the vent control is interesting. It basically takes your vent and plugs it into the side of your control box. And then when you turn your kiln on, it automatically turns your vent on and off throughout the firing to vent. I think that it's not really necessary. It's definitely one of those things that if you just don't want to have to come out and check on your kiln, or you just want it to be integrated, that's one thing. But the vent control, the vent still hooks up to its own power supply. It still needs to hook into a 110, and it's just got a switch on it. Like, you are the vent control. And so, if you have, I want to say it's like $80 or $180. It's not, you don't need it. It's not necessary. It's good for like a school district if they like to just say, nope, we just want it all to be controlled by the computer. But it's extra. Like, you could spend that money on clay or glazes. Like, it's not necessary to avoid turning the vent on and off. Like, it's not. It's not saving you anything. It's not prolonging the life of the vent or anything like that. It's just turning it on when the kiln turns on.
Ooh, so here's a good question, which I can answer, you can answer. So will a glaze color on in the test kiln be the same as if you fired it in your 23M? So
it will not.
No, mine comes out the same though. So I can do
it depends. I will. Okay, let me just.
So I have calibrated my test kiln to fire the exact same as my big kiln. So I know when I fire it in my test kiln, it's going to look the same in the big kiln. You fire your test kilns hotter and faster, though, don't you?
We fire our So our test kilns
I don't
fire hot.
So
and
you
fast.
can you can do it. Yeah.
I have found that it's difficult to test kilns, because they're so small. They tend to heat up a lot quicker, and when you turn them off, they cool down a lot quicker. And so you basically need to mess around with the controls to slow that kiln down. And so we just don't do that because we have to do it. We fire so many tests that I need them to go as fast as possible. I will say with the new kiln,
that new one goes to cone 10 in 4 hours. It's a hot kiln. It's like making lava inside there.
And so like a celadon glaze, like all of the wildflowers, like Jess's wildflowers, those are going to be the same no matter how fast you fire them. Right.
They're very stable.
But
I know that run and melt.
There are other glazes like Coastal
Like
Blue,
the Cosmos, or
all of those are going to be, the color is dictated by how fast it heats up and how fast it cools down. And so that stuff can change when you go from baby kiln to big kiln. So you just take that with a grain of salt, and say,
so it just depends how you fire each. And so, yes, you can set them up. It takes a little work. I have classes on setting a cone offsets, using cone packs, all that stuff. It takes a few firings to dial them in. But once you get them dialed in, now you've got a really good test kiln to know what your glazes are going to look like in the big kiln. So, and for your purposes, I know you guys are trying to just check to make sure, just to check a glaze quickly.
Yeah.
So,
or we use them for luster firings. It's really good for luster firings.
Yes.
Or like decal firing. We've got, I think Sandbow just came out with some like luster decals. And so like we've been doing those in the test kilns because they go to a really low temp really fast and then shut off, and you're like less than a day you're able to get stuff with like gold luster on it. So it's really, really great for like little firings like that.
Yeah, and no, it has really great uses, and I use my baby kiln more than any other kiln in the studio because I can turn around something so quickly. It does cool faster. It's true, but I love it. It's huge. So let's see if anybody has any other questions. Oh yeah. So a lot of folks do what I do. I have a Casa plug that I plug my vent into, and I have the app so I can fire my kiln. And when it gets a top temp and shuts down, I can just click through my phone and click the vent off. I don't run my vent for the cool down cycle. Do you run your vent?
We don't either. So we have, we've got like an old timer. And so our vent, we plug our vent into a timer, and then that timer into the wall. And then, it's set to turn off at like midnight or 2 o'clock whenever it's done. And then the vent just shuts off. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question. If you have a kiln sitter kiln, can you buy a controller for it and switch out from the kiln sitter to the controller? And what are we looking at to do that? Costs and work.
Definitely doable, right? That is an option. I know there different companies have different, like you can buy this control box and plug it into your kiln. It's really going to depend on the model of your kiln sitter kiln and how easily it can be retrofitted. Realistically, you're talking $1,000, $1,200 for like the control box, like a new control box. A lot of times I find that you're probably better, that $1,000 is going to go further towards a new kiln than the headaches involved in trying to like retrofit a digital control box onto a manual kiln. I don't, every single time I've done that, and I've done it a few times, it has never gone well. It's always, there has always been some kind of hardware, or, it's not exactly perfect electrically, and it just doesn't work. It's doable, but I tend not to recommend it.
I don't think it's cost effective. I
No.
think the amount of work and money you're going to put into a kiln that was a kiln sitter kiln to turn it into a computer controlled, you're better off putting the money towards a new kiln.
Yeah. And when you look at like a 23M,
especially if it's an older used one.
Yeah. If you're looking at like one of the 23 sizes, so if your kiln at home takes a 20-inch shelf, and it's a 3-section kiln, that control box is going to be like $1,200. And that's just for the parts. And how it hooks up, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's if you really want to do it, I can help you and give you hints, but like I really strongly recommend against it. It's just I've had too many bad experiences with that exact scenario. And I would hate to like ruin somebody's kiln just because, they're,
So we've got about a minute left. We got a minute left. I know there's a bunch of questions. If you have more questions that didn't get answered, reach out to Andrew at clayscapespottery.com. He'll happily answer all your questions. Now, let's end with the controller you have in front of you. The new L&L test kiln, does it have a different controller than the other test kiln, the DLH?
Yes. And so it still comes with the Genesis. And if you wanted to, Jess, we could get you a Genesis controller for your DLH11, like your doll kiln. We could swap that. But the new test kiln, the controller is going to hook into the kiln, and then the kiln is going to hook into the wall. And so your control box is going to be separate like this.
Oh, that'll be mounted on the wall.
It's a wall mount and so box. You could mount it on the wall. You could just leave it off to the side, but basically
it's not attached. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's not attached to the kiln. So there's actually going to be less heat damage and stuff like that.
That's really important, because we just had a question about firing a kiln when it's too hot or too cold out, because it can cause damage to the controls of the kiln. So this could kind of work around that. Awesome. Well, Drew, we always never have enough time. We say this every time we talk, that we could do this for all day, like 6 hours straight. We could never get everybody's questions. But thank you so much for all the information. You're going to be back with us again. Are you back with us tomorrow or Saturday? Tomorrow, glazing tomorrow.
Yes.
Woo! All right. Thank you so much for being here and answering all of our questions about kilns.
I love it. Reach out. If anybody has questions, just reach out.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Drew. See you tomorrow. All right, that was a great session. Lots of information. You're going to want to go back and rewatch this over and over. If we didn't get to your question, please reach out to Andrew. So it's Andrew at clayscapespottery.com. Even if you don't plan to buy a kiln from Clayscapes, he will more than happily answer your questions. He always does. He helps our members out, and he helps our non-members as well. And he's even sold kilns to people that were like across the country from Clayscapes, because they can work it out where they can ship it to you. And sometimes it works out, around the world even, actually, I think. Sometimes it works out to be a better deal for you. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap this up and take a little break. We're going to be back in about 10 minutes, and we're going to have Michael Harbridge coming on again, and he's going to be doing plumpkins. You got to come back and see.